Welcome to Korea Business Talk number 1, being streamed live on July 16th, 2001. This is the debut episode of a collaborative effort between KoreaBusinessCentral.com and KoreaBridge.net. And today we are going to talk a little bit about what this show is and the communities behind it. But mostly we're going to do what we intend to do, which is to talk about the latest news items and discussion topics in the world of Korea business. To help us get things started and figure out what this show is going to be, we have assembled a fine panel from across the globe, plus me. I don't consider myself part of the fine panel as I don't bring much expertise to this discussion, but I can ask curious questions. And why don't we briefly go around and introduce ourselves. I am Jeff Lebow. I'm in Busan, Korea. My day job is working at the Busan University of Foreign Studies as a teacher trainer. I also manage KoreaBridge.net, which is a business that is connected to Korea. And I am the geek behind this streaming and looking forward to learning a lot about Korea business. Why don't we go around, starting with you, Don.
예, 안녕하십니까. 이름은 Southerton입니다. So much for the Korean. We'll move into the English since it looks like most of our participants are speaking English. I've been dealing in and around Korea for about 35 years, though it's probably been in the last 10 years that I've had a more stronger business focus. Most of my work is centered around 3 areas, and I'll talk about those a little later today. I'm currently in Carlsbad, California, looking out at the Pacific Ocean, and so I'm looking in your direction right now, Jeff, though there's a little bit of water between us. So
I can almost see you. I'm overlooking Busan Harbor. All right, and Yoon Hyungsik.
Yes, I'm currently working for American company called Metaldyne. I'm in charge of Metaldyne Korea operation. I'm about 51 years old in Korean age, but 49 in American age. So glad to meet you.
Thanks very much for joining us. Joshua.
I'm normally based out of Seoul, South Korea, but I'm currently talking to you from Hong Kong, overlooking the harbor, which is kind of nice. I was originally faculty at Sungkyunkwan and Yonsei University for a number of years, and I changed over to the corporate side, and I work for a boutique communications consulting firm that works around Asia in about like 12 countries around here. So that's where I'm talking to you from now.
And how many minutes till checkout?
I've got 2 hours. I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm just going to another hotel for another thing across town, so no worries.
And Professor Adam Cave.
Oh, good morning. I'm a professor of management at Pyeongchang University in Busan. I've known Jeff for 8-9 years now, I guess. And yeah, I'm just here to talk about stuff going on in Korea.
And Adam was part of one of my very early webcasting efforts, Caveman and the Mutt, sports live webcast. Yeah. Daniel.
I'm Daniel Lafontaine. I've been in Korea I've only left Korea twice and 3 times in 12 years. These days, I'm working at a Southerton University. I'm a college instructor, university instructor. I also do some consulting work for AMA Korea, and I have a little boutique pharmaceutical company that one of my former students was senior vice president of a huge conglomerate here. We opened up our own pharmaceutical business to in-licensed medicines. So that's what I do.
A lot of boutique
I'm in
operations
Busan,
here.
so I'm just north of you, Jeff. We are the closest, by far the closest, other than the guy who's, actually there's 2 people in Busan. So this is a Southern boys.
All right, and up north, David Yoon.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Yoon. I'm a private equity professional in Korea. I've been here for 10 years. I was actually born and raised in Chicago, and it's a pleasure to meet you all.
All right. And to very briefly talk about the communities that are working together to put this together, KoreaBridge.net grew out of PusanWeb.com. It's a primarily English language portal for life in Korea and life in Busan. We've got classifieds and forum discussions and blogs and things like that. But my real vision for this has always been that it's a media channel, and that people look at Korea Bridge and say, well, what's on today? What's on tonight? And that we have these kinds of live interactive discussions about all aspects of life in Korea. So someday after Korea Business Talk, we'll say, and stay tuned, at the top of the hour, we'll be doing K-pop Live. So if any of you want to participate in that, you are welcome as well. KoreaBridge.net. Who can tell us a little bit about Korea Business Central?
I guess I'll go with that. Korea Business Central, I've been there for about 18 months now. Steve Bammel, who is the founder and administrator of the site, has been truly phenomenal in bringing together a huge range of assets to the Korean business community. He's done everything from video casts to radio talk shows, of which I was a part of, to evenings out. Our latest evening was the International Entrepreneurship meeting, or get together in Gangnam, which was a great event. Other than that, we have a huge amount of discussions on KBC. We have Experts Corner on KBC. So KBC is really a very well developed website, and it's only been going for about 21 months from, I think, might be wrong on the exact dates, but there's a huge amount of content. So,
all right, and Steve has been a pleasure to work with. I've been coordinating efforts with him, getting this organized, and he is the wizard behind the curtain. He is tuning in, but not on the Hangout. I'll keep lobbying him to get him in. But anyway, coming up later, we've got some discussions about cultural issues of doing business here and there and some other items. But let's jump into the news. What is new in the world of Korea business? Adam, why don't we start with you? I know you have
All
something
right.
to
Well,
share.
of course, I mean, the big news is Pyeongchang, right? I mean, getting the Olympics, third time's the charm, beating Munich and the city in France, and it's pretty exciting. But you know, all of a sudden, now that they've won, there's a big sort of concern. I mean, how much is this going to cost us? How much money is it going to make? And how are we gauging these kind of issues? So through the media's been going back and forth based on tangible and intangible benefits to Korea. So, I mean, for me, that's quite a huge issue right now.
What's the take on how they won? How did they get the bid? What did they offer that was so enticing?
I know the answer to that one.
What is it?
Oh, actually, here's a secret behind. As a communications consultant, we're really pumped about this because Helios Partners, they were the communications consulting firm that worked with Vancouver for the Vancouver Olympics. They worked with Sochi to help them win the 2014 bid, and then Pyeongchang hired them for the 2018 bid. And what they did is they completely reframed how they were going to present their message. Instead of doing a traditional information dump, they turned it into this whole story about how they could, Pyeongchang was ideally suited to help the Olympic Committee realize its dreams of expanding winter sports throughout Asia. It was no longer about Korea, and kind of the Wikipedia entry of why it's a good technical destination. It was all about how we could help realize the Olympic Committee's dreams. And if you saw this great speech by Kim Yoon and actually Eamon Bak in English, they did a knockout job in Africa doing that great speech to really nail it home. And all of that was written by this great communications consulting firm that helped the previous two winners.
Very interesting. That's definitely a change in the way things are framed. Typically,
Wall
the
Street
sales
Journal had a
pitches.
good article all on it about how they had helped the previous ones, and it's just fascinating stuff. They did a good job with it.
So now that they've got them, what are some of you mentioned some of the concerns, Adam? Anyone jump in here? How is this good news, bad news, or something in between?
Well, there was some bad news. There's been talk about trying to share the Olympics with North Korea, and I just read in the report that the IOC is putting like a lot of cold water on that idea. They don't think it's reasonable.
It's too bad because they have a lot more snow than Pyeongchang.
That is true, man. Kumgansan's got some great mountains, and you got like Baekdusan up there. Some amazing mountains up there.
What
It would
road
be nice, but technically, how do you get people to go in, and how do you get people to go out, and
The feasibility issues are not quite up there. At the same time, if you really think about the Olympics, people are like, well, Korea doesn't have mountains that are that tall, but none of the ski runs are actually that long that you need these grand kind of Whistler Rocky Mountain style mountains. Korea's got, more like the Catskill East Coast style in the U.S. mountains, and those are perfectly tall enough for Olympic purposes.
Hyungsik, how is this playing out in the Korean media?
Koreans are generally taking it as a big victory because Korea became the one of the few nations who can host Olympics, World Cup, and Winter Olympics. However, there is a concern that what happened in 2000 Olympics may happen because Korea built 10,000 soccer stadiums and only 2 or 3 are profitable at this time. Most of them are losing money. So what the media is saying to the government is, yes, this is a good event. Let's show the best of Korea, but let's not lose money after 2018 Olympics done. So there is a lot of media editorials demanding government that plan ahead economically, make it more economical success, as well as like world peace, world events.
that's what I always thought for Ulsan. Here in Ulsan, we have a beautiful stadium. It's a Munsu Stadium, but it's only good for soccer. And soccer, how many soccer games does the Hyundai Tigers actually held? Other than that, there's a huge electricity bill at the stadium that I heard about, and it's true that out of the 10, 2 are making money. I'm surprised there are 2. It's just that here in Korea, it's just like, especially the Ulsan Munsu, it's a beautiful stadium. They did an absolutely wonderful job. In Canada and America, we always known you don't build a one sports stadium. you try and build a multi-purpose stadium so that you can bring in more events.
All right, any other thoughts on the Olympics, or shall we move on to another story?
Well, I think Pyeongchang will be fantastic for the development of the Gangwon-do region. And, I guess in the presentation, they were mentioning they're going to build a high-speed rail from Incheon Airport all the way to the East Coast to get there, I think, in less than an hour.
That'd be awesome.
I'm
That
all
would be
for more
awesome.
KTXs. I love KTX.
No, that is something that we should not let it happen. That is something that should not happen because that KTX train is very expensive to build. We told the IOC committee that we are going to build a plan, but that's something that we have to forget about because it's going to cost a lot of money and not many people will be using it after Olympics.
True.
Very expensive.
One good example of not.
I don't agree with that. I think with Gangwon, I think with Gangwon though. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, I think the Gangwon though, it is the hidden jewel of Korea in terms of mountain ranges and everything else. Here in Korea, I've traveled in many different parts of the country, and Gangwon though is truly an awesome sight, and beauty-wise, natural-wise. If there was a high-speed train, it would. I think it would help the tourism business in Gangwon to an extreme extent.
I'd be happy even with a slow one, to be honest. We don't have currently. You got to take a bus out there, which is not really.
Exactly. The buses and the roads are a little tough.
Right. So I definitely train would be better.
All right,
The
well,
train
stay
would be
tuned.
nice. Just like for me, what I'm always annoyed about it here in Korea, down south is all the trains always have to go to Seoul, and Gangwon to Ulsan, or Gangwon to Busan, or Gangwon and Gwangju to Busan. It would be much quicker by KTX, but they don't have it. But that highway between Gwangju and Ulsan and Daegu, it's an amazingly beautiful highway. There's so much beautiful scenery. But I think it would be the same thing for Gangwon. Get the people to be able to get in there. Otherwise, it's 10 hours to get in there. Like from Ulsan to Gangwon, those 10 hours, and it shouldn't take that long.
All right, welcome back, Don. I'm sure we'll be talking about Olympic-related stories for the next 7 years, so
Yep.
stay tuned. Let us move on to some other stories in the news. Who's got something on their agenda today?
Well, if I can bring up a topic of discussion, the whole Korea Exchange Bank Lone Star situation, and what that means for Korea. Since I'm in the investment business,
Can you fill us in a little bit on the details?
Well, basically, U.S.-based private equity firm called Lone Star bought a controlling equity stake in Korea Exchange Bank, I believe in 2004, and this firm has tried to sell it 3 or 4 times, and right now they signed an agreement to sell Korea Exchange Bank to Hana Bank, but it's been caught up in regulatory approval. And they just recently extended the deadline to the end of this year to complete the deal. But I'm sure many of you have heard of this. There's a negative public opinion towards Lone Star because they're going to make huge capital gains on their investment and pay little, if no capital gains tax in Korea. But I think if Korea wants to be a financial hub in Asia and the rest of the world, this deal has to be resolved in a fair way.
I'm assuming Lone Star is out of the States?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
it's in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I've been that story has been a very up and down story. Lone Star, the government sold off to KEB because it was because of the crisis and everything else. It was like one of the last banks to get sold. They really find a foundation, and Lone Star bought it at a pittance. And they're selling it off at like 10 times the price, and it's like, oh.
Well, when Lone Star bought it, the bank was close to going into default.
Exactly.
They took the risk at that time,
Right.
and Korean institutions, perhaps they had a chance to step up and take over the bank as well. But Lone Star took the risk, so as a result, they should be able to enjoy the rewards. That's my opinion.
Is Korea considering any kind of policy change to prevent this, or
They stopped it. The Korean government, Lone Star have tried to sell this Dave.
How
Yes,
would we
David.
compare this to, like, for example, the Buffett-Posco scenario that happened a couple of years back that was a similar kind of thing where he came in and profited it, and then they tossed a whole bunch of regulations on top to stop it from happening again?
Yeah.
Because, for example, there was a private equity firm called Newbridge that bought and sold Korea First Bank to Standard Chartered, and after they sold the bank, they pulled out of Korea. And in general, in terms of other private equity firms around the world, there's sort of a negative view towards Korea because of the unclear regulatory environment. So what I think should happen is a clear regulatory environment. When you come in, you know what's going to happen, and whether the government rules for you or against you, at least make it clear. And
Kind of the it's okay to bring money in, but we don't like it when you take money out kind of thing. We want to avoid that.
We have in Korean we have a saying that is completely different when you line up before the bathroom and when you are in the bathroom. So
Awesome.
that's what happened. Okay, Korea was in financial trouble. Korean Exchange Bank was in trouble, so Lone Star came in. They bought it. Now they are making a lot of money and they want to get out with a lot of cash in hands. And Korean government doesn't like it. So that's
well, remember,
that's the whole issue.
Lone Star, when they invested, they could have lost everything because the bank
Right. They took a risk. Correct.
took shape. So they took the risk; they should get the reward. That's my opinion. Foreign or Korean, whoever takes the risk should get the reward.
So what the government is trying to do is trying to find any way to stop stop paying Lone Star a lot of money. Try to find any excuses. This is what's happening. How I see it.
David, while we have a finance expert here, can you tell us anything about interest rates? I keep seeing stories about interest rate going up or not, and inflation and all of that. What's the latest?
Well, I believe this week the Bank of Korea held the interest rate at, I think, 3.5%. So yeah, they would raise it to counteract any signs of inflation in Korea, because Korea was basically the first country to bounce back from the global economic crisis. you want to prevent overheating the economy. But right now, I think the Bank of Korea, has a cautious stance, but wants to keep the interest rate low to keep economic growth going.
Because here in Korea, the inflation, especially in the food area, it's getting ugly. Like I remember buying just last year watermelons for under $10. Right now, a watermelon, you cannot find a watermelon here in Korea for under $20. It's all over $20 for a watermelon, which is completely nuts. Like Koreans love watermelons; they're always eating it, and this year it's so expensive.
Yeah, watermelons have always been a little pricey on the peninsula.
Well, but not $20. Not $20. It's usually only $5 to $10 at max.
There was
now
a great article actually, Daniel, where they had most expensive watermelon. There was, I guess it's specialty watermelon selling for $100 a watermelon, and that was in Japan. $100 for a single watermelon that's impressive.
But $22 for every watermelon in the country. That hurts everybody.
You are listening to Korea Business Talk, your produce shopping guide for Korea. Other news stories. Adam, I know we had a couple of union-related items. Anything to chime in with that?
Well, we could start that up. It's kind of interesting what the government did. They introduced this new. You can break out of your existing union. You can have multiple unions underneath a company. So within 2 weeks of the start, at July 1st, I think there was 167 new unions created. So, of course, the big major unions, the KCTU, are really, really upset about this because they're losing a lot of power. So it's kind of interesting the back alley or the back doorway that the government went about this, really.
It's when you divide and conquer, you make everybody smaller, then the government can better control everyone.
That's what I read, that the kind of the reasoning behind this was to kind of isolate some of the more radical union efforts. And so they become a smaller slice of the union pie, and sort of the more moderate union energy takes over.
Become a more business friendly. I mean, to stop with all the constant conflict, which is one of the things that many companies cite as a reason not to come to Korea. So by having so many small unions, you make it a little bit easier to negotiate, I guess. And, hopefully.
Well, you get that aspect, or you get more union heads who can't agree on it, that can't agree together, and then you get a nightmare, a perpetual nightmare.
True.
That is why Hyundai Motor Company was all for the union, inside the union system, and Samsung and POSCO was dead against it last year. It was going to be introduced a year ago, and there was a registration to delay by 1 year. And Hyundai has a strong union. They won't have less power from the union by making smaller. And Samsung has no union, so they didn't want any type of union. For my company, American Korea, we make auto components. We are non-union, and we are very careful about what's going to happen with inside my company, because two people can make there can be 20, 30 unions in my company. So this is a big issue for the companies like us who doesn't have a union. She agrees.
I think that's the best comment yet.
No, the union here in Korea is just like, I remember talking to VPs here in Korea about unions, and they hate unions. They're hard. They always think they can. The unions think that they can do the business better than the management people. And, oh boy, tough. Korea. If you have just one union you can't agree with, what happens when you get 20 unions that you have to agree with? It's going to be year-round negotiating.
Hopefully 19 of them keep working.
And this is Don Southerton. And again, that's one reason why Hyundai Motors has moved most of their, more than half of their production now is now overseas. It just tipped earlier this year that more than half the production, because you can go in Montgomery, Alabama, or West Point, Georgia, or Slovakia, or Czechoslovakia, and have non-union shops. And so one of the solutions that Hyundai had to the union issue was move production into local markets.
It's a very reasonable thing to do. because here, otherwise the union issue would be it'd be a catastrophe. I think it's going to go bad because here in Ulsan, at the headquarters of Hyundai, police buses going through the city, going to the nearest Hyundai plant. It happens on a yearly basis. So if you have 20 unions inside those plants, oh my God.
I also saw a recent article about that plant in Alabama rejecting unionization. It's a Hyundai plant in Alabama, and the United Auto Workers in the U.S., the big auto union, kind of wanted to unionize them. And basically, the workers said, "No, we've got a pretty good deal. We are more concerned about job security than whatever a union can provide us."
Unions were a great thing 100 years ago. I'll never say anything bad against a union 100 years ago, but today, with everybody being educated, with everybody talking, everything, you don't need a union. I personally don't think you need a union.
I worked in Hyundai for about 13 years, from 86 to 99, and I haven't seen how the unions behaved. It was formed in 1987, right after Chun Doo-won gave up to people. And it started because there was nothing and there was a big union, so people didn't know what to expect out of a union. Or I should say, they were not really clear about what union role has to be. It has to be the force that has to represent the workers, but somehow the political force, who are very close to the North Korean leftists, got involved, and that's why it became so militant. Right now, current Hyundai Union is led by soft union, the people who are not engaged with leftists. So Hyundai has not had any strike for the last 2 years. But coming September, there will be a new election that can change. It can be another militant style again.
What election is that in September?
The Hyundai Union elects every 2 years. So there might be a regime change, union regime change, and it can be a hardliners again.
The leadership. Every. I think what he says every 3 years, the union leadership changes.
Right, inside Hyundai.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there's an election. You can get re-elected, but there's an election every 2 years.
Yeah. 2 years? 3 years?
2 years.
All right, I want to move on to a discussion portion eventually, especially if Don can stay with us. Don, are there any technical issues we can troubleshoot? You're kind of katawata. But before we get to the discussion part, I wanted to mention a few other news items that caught people's attentions this week. Starting with the Tokdo story, the Korean Air in Japan. Anyone tune into this one? This, I guess, Korean Air was flying one of the new Airbuses on a trial flight and passed over Tokdo. And Japan found this to be an affront, and so has ordered its diplomats to boycott Korean Air for a month. So that should sort out this whole Tokdo myth.
Tokdo 우리 땅이다.
우리 땅이다. 우리 땅이다.
That was overreaction by Japan.
Right.
Overreaction.
It's kind of funny actually. It's just like
if there's any war,
it's not like they attacked the island. They just flew over it. What's the big deal?
Do you think Korea would have responded any differently if Japan had done that? Would have Korea responded in any way?
I think it would be similar if a Japan Air flight did the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a very passionate issue here.
I think we should make it to international island.
Having the Cuban Air Force flying over the southern Florida islands. The Americans wouldn't appreciate it either.
But if there is a war developing between Korea and Japan, that will be over this Tokdo Island. This has been a very subtle issue. Japanese, if you listen to what Japanese are saying, they have every right to claim that Tokdo Island because it was legally in international law in 1904, right before Korea got annexed. So they are talking about taking it to international Justice Committee, International Jurisdiction Committee in Hague.
International Court of Justice.
Right. Now, Korea doesn't want to go to that because then it becomes a more legal issue. So I'd rather have, you heard about a Korean singer called Kim Jong-un who makes a big advertisement or in LA.
Okay.
I think that's the wrong move because he's making it a big issue out of nothing. We own it, Korea owns it, so let's keep it quiet. We don't have to make a big issue.
Exactly.
Because it's kind of framed as an issue of nationalism, but it's really about money, isn't it? It's about fishing rights and natural gas reserves.
It's mostly the natural. Well, if you look, ductile is just one aspect. All over Asia, the Chinese, the Japanese, and the Koreans, and the Filipinos, and the Vietnamese, and the
Spratly Islands and all that.
They're all fighting over oil and gas because there seems to be a huge amount of oil and gas that has not been developed yet. And the Chinese and the Japanese, they all want their piece. So the ductile is just one little aspect in a much bigger. If war is going to start, it would definitely start over these islands and these fish and these oil rights.
A couple of other news items just to mention quickly. The Apple lawsuit. This week, Korean lawyer sued Apple, and Hyungsik, you might know more of the details about this. The actual issue was that there was some kind of tracking device in the iPhones being sold here.
Yeah, it was featured in America also. Apple iPhone has some like a tracking device that tracks all the where you have been. You've been to a motel or a big hinky-panky with ladies. They know where you've been. So a lawyer thought that was illegal, so filed a lawsuit of 1 million won, and the court said the lawyer Kim was right. So ordered Apple to pay 1 million won. Now Mr. Kim is gathering the iPhone users to sue Apple. So I heard there are about 200,000 people already working with Mr. Kim, getting preparation to sue Apple, and it's going to cost a lot of money because there are over 1 million people who would be participating. And I heard today that Apple hired probably Kim and Jang or PKL to represent Apple for this issue.
Have these kinds of class action lawsuits succeeded in the past?
Not that I know of. This is the most popular or most widely known case that all the consumers got united to fight a suit against the big giant.
Well, if you combine iPhones and love motel tracking, that will get people excited.
If Don was here, he'd be able to answer that question. I believe there has been class action suits before in Korea, but Don
is here.
Don is here?
He's blacked out right now, but he's in the Hangout.
I'm having some network problems. Yeah, I'm having some severe It keeps the Google network the Google network keeps crashing for here. So I've gotten 5 crashes from Google. Appears to be their network. So
that was my question too. What browser are you using? I
apologize, but of course it's not my it's Google. So it's probably localized within the States here. I think I'm the only one from the States.
I'm also wondering if it might be a browser issue. What browser?
I use these systems, a variety of systems. Right now I'm on Safari, but it's...
if you have Chrome, you might want to try that.
Yeah. I really don't know, but I use the same system for about 6 of these type of communication systems, and I haven't had an issue before. So
I'm just wondering because Google Talk is Google based.
Yeah.
My guess is that because Google Talk is.
I've got clear arrow side. Yeah.
Well, it might be the internet speed in the U.S. because in Korea we're spoiled by fast internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Firefox. I'm using Firefox at the moment, and I don't seem to have any problems. So.
Well, I think it's maybe internet speed factor in the U.S.
Yeah, just as I was talking about the virtues of using Chrome, my Chrome crashed, or I got kicked out of the Hangout on Chrome. Of course, I am in here twice. This reminded me of a story that David just posted an hour before the show that gives me hope for Korean internet about Naver. What was that about, David?
Basically, someone in Korea posted on Twitter. He's basically encouraging people in Korea to use, I guess, Google Naver, because he argued that Naver doctors their results. For instance, for the presidential election for Lee Myung-bak, they doctored the search results during the election, not to include him or mentions of his wife in the top results. I posted an article. I can share it with you somehow. But basically, a Korean was asking everyone to use Google in Korea because he argued Naver, tailored and altered results.
I tell you, that would be great, not only for search, but I'd be delighted if Korea moved a little bit away from Internet Explorer and more toward Chrome.
Oh, yes, please.
Right. Or Firefox.
Or
Personally,
with ActiveX.
Yeah.
the ActiveX. Actually, my wife uses the ActiveX for banking, and it's like here in Korea, there's like double, triple jeopardy when it comes to the passwords and everything else. And there's the password and then the key number that you get a little card that gives you. You have to type in a security. What number do you have to type in? And ActiveX, when it comes to security, in Korea, that's what Koreans decided 20 years, 10, 12, about 12 years ago. They decided on Explorer, so.
But the bad thing about ActiveX, it makes you use Explorer exclusively, and there are probably other ways to ensure security. So you can use whatever browser you want.
Yeah. But here, like my wife, she hates Firefox. She hates Chrome. She only uses on the ground here in Korea. Koreans, there is no issue. It's all nobody knows Firefox. Nobody knows Chrome. Not that I know of. Like I've talked to many a Korean. They don't know there's other browsers in here.
I am a Chrome missionary. I force all of my students to use Chrome whenever we're doing.
I heard that Korean banks are moving away from ActiveX.
Really?
So, it will take a while for them to redesign their sites and such, but that's what I heard. So I think that's a good thing, so people can use whatever browser they want.
Yeah, they're talking about it now. Yeah.
They're talking about it, it's going to take a long time because they have to basically redesign.
Exactly. They got to start from scratch.
But, I think every bank is eventually going to upgrade their site. They're constantly upgrading, providing better service. So hopefully in the next build, all the banks will remove the ActiveX requirement.
Korean designers are incredibly happy with it, at least my Korean web designer friends, because they've actually, if you look at a lot of Korean websites from a more global perspective, a lot of them have been, ugly. And this is, people tend to assume, the Korean designers must be not that good, but they're fantastic. They're these amazing web designers, but it's the companies, when they go in and actually are asked to design these things, they're being told to design these very old-fashioned, overloaded websites that are slow. When you load some of the even Gmarket pages, it'll just crash your browser almost with all the stuff that's loading. And so this move away from ActiveX is making a lot of the web designers incredibly happy because they can begin to finally, show their real skills. They're not being forced into using very kind of old formats and old styles of user interface. So it's going to be exciting to see what the new generation of Korean web designers comes up with now that they're not forced into that pattern of Internet Explorer and all that stuff.
Right. I posted the article about the person encouraging people to use Google in the chat. So if you look on the lower left, you click on chat, you can see the link.
Thank you.
And I'll toss that into the chat room as well.
Interesting.
And I'm wondering, since Don is having some connection issues, he had planned to kind of feature a discussion on some cultural issues that we might maybe move to next week. So in our remaining time, I'd say it's an open floor. Any other news items or just kind of general business discussion items people would like to bring up?
Who's going to start?
You are.
Oh, okay. Well, I was on the Korea Business Central, and they had an interesting web video about customer service in Korea. And I've been living in Korea for 10 years, and I had a little interesting sort of thought that, 10 years ago I thought customer service here was fantastic, right? You go to the gas station and there's 4 guys that come running out and they, wash your car and they do everything for you. But now, as you see, there's more and more self-serve stations coming in. Is anybody else noticing a trend away from customer service? I mean, it's something that they prided themselves on. Many Koreans go to America and say it's so slow and, nobody helps you. Here, you're starting to find that because it's more cost-conscious, there's less of a focus on customer service. You now got one guy at the gas station and self-serves. And to me, it's just kind of an interesting change or a trend, I guess.
I'm sorry. One of the interesting things about Google Hangout is you can see when someone starts watching a YouTube video. Just got the message, Joshua Davies is watching YouTube. Are you getting a little distracted, Joshua? Are we boring you?
No, I clicked on the button. It didn't actually work.
Which is kind of a cool feature of Hangout. If you click YouTube, you can select a YouTube video that everyone in the Hangout can
Lebow
watch.
is now watching YouTube. Would you like to switch to YouTube? How dare you, Jeff? No, actually, I didn't know what it did. I was like, here's a button I haven't clicked on the interface yet. I'm going to click this button.
Click.
So,
And then it said it's not working. I was like, oh, well, that's a very interesting non-working feature.
back to Adam's point about customer service.
That's
I personally haven't noticed that, and if anything, I'd like a little bit less customer service. The stalking in department stores still bothers me. And my wife too. We lived in America for 5 or 6 years. My wife happily shopped at TJ Maxx or Marshalls, and she comes in here to Lotte or Shinsegae, and the clerk is stalking her around the store, and she flees.
If I may throw out an interesting fact about YouTube, one of the co-founders, his name is Steve Chen. He actually married a Korean woman. Because he was visiting Google's Korea office, and then he met a woman who spoke fluent English, and they got married.
That's awesome.
And also, the guy in charge of Google's search logos is a Korean American, I believe.
Interesting.
One of the American curse coming to Korea is tipping. Traditionally, there was no tipping in Korea in the restaurants or anywhere else. But somehow, with Americans coming, and there is more wide tipping, especially in Gangnam area. I live in Yeoksamdong, so now it's a law. It's 100% that you gotta pay waitress at a Japanese restaurant.
Oh, really?
And when you go to Japanese restaurant, there is a little cook coming on, and you are supposed to give him 10,000 won. On waitress, 10,000 won. So it's becoming
a lot of unhappy wives.
Tipping is coming more to the start from Gangnam area, and it's gonna spread around.
Oh no.
No.
Tipping.
I always like the idea. You tip if the service was good. If the service was bad, there are sometimes in the taxis there, the guys are rude, or the guys don't want to open the window, or the guy doesn't want to turn down the radio. He says, "There goes your tip, buddy."
But in Korea, it's not of whether you get service or not. If you do not tip, now you are getting to be called the cheap.
Yeah.
So
and I'll say, yeah, I'm cheap. You give me bad service, I'm a cheap man. No problem. I can handle
I'm okay with that too. Yeah, absolutely.
But here for customer service, I've had the ups and downs. Like Korean customer service is really interesting at some point, but I like self-service to a certain extent. It practices my career. You're very much a Korean when you can do self-service in Korean and you have no problems doing it. So I like the self-serve. It's kind of cool.
I just want to send a shout out to Rahul in the chat room, who is provided a link to an article about South Korea's cultural sensitivity strategies for Western technical communications. Perhaps we can get you in next week when we have Don discuss what he was planning on discussing this week. We're heading into the home stretch here, I think. Any other news or discussion items to bring up?
Well, if I could bring up Korean Parliament, and basically, I don't know if people noticed, but there's a group of relatively young lawmakers there who are vowing never to enter into physical confrontations.
Cool.
That's a nice change.
Yeah, that's led by Parliament member Hong Jong-wook.
Okay.
He actually went to Harvard for undergrad and Stanford for law school. He represents Nowon-gu, which is the northeast district of Seoul, and he started this movement where if there's any chance of the physical confrontation you've seen on TV on CNN, where people are actually blocking each other on the parliament floor, if there's any chance of that, he and a group of lawmakers will just back away and not confront it all. So I think that's a good movement.
That's good.
How has that been received by colleagues and the public?
I think overall very positively because, you know, it emphasizes dialogue versus physical confrontation and blocking. I think that's a good movement.
I think the people who wouldn't like that law would be like a journalist. They don't have good, fantastic stories to have the readers.
Cool.
And also, they're saying that Hong Jong-woo, the person who led that movement, you know, someday he has ambition to become president of Korea.
Correct.
Well, with Harvard and Stanford, the pedigree, it's a good platform. It's a good place to start.
But he's perfectly bilingual. I actually know him because I went to Harvard undergrad as well, and I think it'd be fantastic for Korea to have a truly bilingual president.
Yeah. Im Young-bak, his level of English is what?
Not that great.
Not that great? Okay. I remember a few years ago I was talking to this American woman. She had a chance to she had a chance to try and talk to the president, teach the president of Korea, Mr. No, and she was telling me his Korean language skills were not the greatest either. His English language skills were not the greatest.
Right. But the late President Roh's son actually went to Stanford for his MBA.
Okay.
And I know him as well. I went to Stanford
David?
for my MBA too, and he's perfectly fluent in English.
Okay.
Any interest, David, in getting dual citizenship and running yourself?
I'm sorry?
Any interest in running for president yourself?
Me, I'm an American citizen, so I cannot run in Korea.
You can't get some kind of dual citizenship?
Here in Korea, there is no dual citizenship. Although they're thinking of opening it up, but right now there is no dual citizenship.
All right, it's up to
It is
Hyungsik.
now. It is possible because I have two sons. They were born in Canada, and they can become dual citizens as long as they serve in the military.
Yeah.
So
for
they
Canadians, we can do it. Yeah.
Actually, since I was born in the United States, I did not serve in the Korean military, so cannot run.
My daughter, as you noticed. I also have a son. I was told at the age of 18, he has to choose which citizenship she wants to have. She's dual now, but at the age of 18, she has to decide.
Okay.
All right, well, gentlemen, this has been great. I'm thinking we go ahead and wrap up, but I think we'll be back next week with another discussion, and everyone's welcome back. Hopefully we can get some new voices in here as well. Any final words before we close things off?
I think this is a great place. Talking for an hour is kind of fun. It allows people to throw up different ideas and everything else. So if you invite me, I will definitely be back.
Yeah, I look forward to coming back too. Good time.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Cheers.
All right,
Cheers.
to everyone else listening in, we'd love to hear your input, your ideas, your participation. So we'll be back next week, same time, for your Saturday morning business hangout here on Korea Bridge and Korea Business Central.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Cheers.
Have a good weekend.
Okay, so that's our official out point. Ran away fast. I usually stay on for a little while anyway for a post-show. Although I think my computer is just stressed out. I'm getting fan noise and I can hear a delay. But feel free to chime in with any post-show thoughts.
Jeff, I think I gotta go to Johnson. My eagle is calling. Okay. Thank you.
I understand. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
And it looks like Joshua left us. He needs to check out. So it's just the Pusan crew, Adam.
Oh, okay. Just you and me. Well, my wife wants to go shopping, so I got to leave shortly too. But,
All right. Well,
yeah.
thank you very much to everyone. And we'll be back next week
And Don's
with
back.
Don Southerton. Welcome back, Don. Don, are you there?
All right. Well, I'm gonna run,
All
Jeff,
right.
so we'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream, and we can hopefully sort things out with Don. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week.